I just think it really like shaped me into like who I am today. I just don't have to think about it anymore.
I felt the same.
Taking a break as well, just from it all together, sometimes really helps. Identity
Same.
crisis.
No, exactly. It's time to get loud. Welcome back to Loud Talk with Lavi, a podcast where we break down the walls of beauty standards one flaw at a time. And today I have such a special guest, Patsy, also known as Cystur, on all social media platforms. I have been following your content for like so long, I feel like, and I feel like we already know each other, but this is our first time
Exactly. Yeah. No, I can say exactly the same thing to you. Like, yeah, I feel like we kind of found each other through TikTok and then like
Yes.
connected everywhere else. And yeah, like ever since we've just been like, and I think we have so much in common as well.
Yes.
Like, there's so much. Like every time I see your content and like something new comes up, like when you're doing your get ready with me's or something, I'm like, I can't believe that. Like I have to ask you about that. So
Right,
yeah, there's a
right.
lot to talk about for sure.
No, I love that. And like that's really the power of the internet. Like we live literally on separate continents, but we've been able to connect through social media and like find common interests. And I think
Yeah.
that's the beautiful part about social media is that you're able to like create a community and all of that. And you've definitely created a pretty amazing community yourself. Do you want to talk a bit about your journey with social media and how you kind of got into it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think my journey with social media is like, I mean, it's kind of crazy because on one hand, I maybe always thought I would get into it like as a kid, but then
Okay.
also like whenever I was in my early 20s, I was really like antisocial on social media. I think I had this like real sort of like I fell out of love with it. I remember like when I was, I don't know, like a teenager, I had like my Tumblr years. I always like wanted to
Okay.
blog and like I had like a little fashion blog and like nobody knew about it. It was totally secret from like friends at school. And then I think I just became a little bit more introverted. And then especially when I got my acne a few years ago, it was like real introversion. Like I was so alone. And I think it was that kind of like loneliness that actually like made me sort of like expose myself again because I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I really needed a community. And that's kind of how the like skin stuff started. Because before then, I didn't even have a skincare routine. Like I didn't know anything about
Right.
skincare. So the fact that I actually got into skincare as a creator, like to me is wild. Like I would have
Mm-hmm.
never thought for me if someone told me like, oh, you'd be a creator, I would have thought like, oh, it would be like fashion or like
Right.
styling or like something like that. But yeah, the fact that I got into skincare was like yeah, but I love it now. And I think I've become such a nerd. Like I nerd out so much. Like any of my friends, like if they ever ask me about skincare, I can like talk to them for hours about skincare.
Seriously.
So yeah, so yeah, with my journey it was just like a really, really intense time. And it was about 3 years ago. I remember basically like my acne kind of came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of always had like pretty clear skin, like no like crazy problems, maybe just like hormonal breakouts.
Like the typical
So like
teenage breakouts and such.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
or even just like period breakouts,
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of thing. So and I remember I'd like look at like research about acne and stuff and be like, wow, there's like this cystic acne that's like and I would always think like, oh, that would never happen to me. Like I would look at it and be like, oh, like I never really break out all over my face. So I guess I kind of consider myself quite lucky in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
And around 2020, I was like going through, actually, no, it was 2019. I was going through like a really like traumatic time, like stress wise. I was going through a breakup and I was moving out and then I didn't have anywhere to live.
Oh
So like
wow.
I was kind of couch surfing for a while. And I think all of that like really contributed to like I lost a lot of weight and my period stopped.
Wow.
Which like I hadn't really struggled with in the past. And that was really traumatizing because at first I was like, wow, like I need to have a period, like what's
Yeah.
going on? And also around that time I was like having real self-esteem issues. Like this was like before I started the page, by the way. Like this was like yeah, like 2019. And I was like, I started dating this guy and I thought like I really need like to look this certain type of way. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember going to the derm and like I wanted like some like weird like treatment or something to be like I want like the best skin, like I want like really clear skin, even though I already had clear skin at that point. And she prescribed me these antibiotics because she was like, oh, I think you have like a mild case of like body acne. My GP in the UK is like kind of like your personal doctor. That's
Yes.
like free. Yeah. And my GP was like, no, you don't need to take that. And I was like, oh, maybe if I take it though, like it'll make my skin even better. And yeah, so I started taking the antibiotic and it really like messed up my gut health. Like it was the worst thing ever.
Gosh.
And then after that, like I didn't finish the course. My periods had stopped. And I think it was like a cocktail for like inflammation and going on in my body. So a few months went by and I started seeing like breakouts all over my cheeks. And then it was like kind of overnight, they just turned cystic. And around that time, I also had like an ovarian cyst. So I had to go through surgery at the start of 2020, like right before the pandemic, I had surgery.
Oh, wow. You were just
And
going
so
through the ringer.
literally, like it just keeps getting worse. Like the
Yeah.
story of like how I got my acne is literally like you think it's gotten really bad and then it gets worse. And then yeah, like I came out of surgery, I was on a lot of meds, for the pain and like all that kind of thing. And luckily, like I was finally like managed to save my ovary, which was like the goal of that surgery. And then yeah, ever since like I've just been really struggling and like just remember feeling like, wow, I can't deal with all of this. Like this is like way like I mean I'm talking about it like with a smile on my face. I think because I've told the story so many times, but like
Right.
it was such an emotional time. And then yeah, about a year went by. I remember like learning more about skincare and being like, okay, I think I need to start like using like a retinoid maybe, but I was always really scared to take Accutane. I think because I was already so messed up from like the antibiotic experience.
Yes,
So I
absolutely.
was like, I'm definitely not taking antibiotics again
Yeah.
because I think that really contributed. And then like I'd never really been one for, like hormonal kind of like contraceptives for acne as well. So I was just at that point where I was like, I have to, I guess I felt like quite like on my own with it. And I was like watching a lot of like YouTube videos of like how I heal my acne stories, like, and trying to like write everything down and
Right.
like make sure that I can like maybe follow it or something.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure that like you've kind of experienced maybe to a level, like following different like creators and like sort of trying to get your head around like the maze of acne.
Absolutely. And it's so hard because it's such a personal thing. For me, I've had experiences with acne kind of my whole like, adolescent life. I think I noticed my first breakout around like 13, 14, but the typical like teenage breakouts, I would get more painful ones around my period and all that. But I really noticed like the huge flare up after getting off hormonal birth control. About
Yeah.
6 months after, and that really messed up my hormones. And immediately after that, what kind of seemed like the go-to solution that everyone was giving me was like Accutane, which I also did not want to go on, especially because I
Yeah.
viewed it more as a band-aid solution rather than like, okay, this is actually going to get to the root cause. And because I had such a traumatic experience on birth control,
Yeah.
because the reason I got off it is because I felt like really out of body, like I didn't feel like myself. I felt like I couldn't control my emotions.
Yeah, I
Like
felt exactly the same way on
it
it. I
was
just didn't feel like my body didn't feel like my body.
no, exactly. It
Oh,
was the
yeah.
weirdest thing. So got off it, and with Accutane, like typically you go on a form of birth control or you're always doing blood work and stuff. And I'm like, this just doesn't seem like the thing for me. And being on this journey of kind of trying to look more at root cause and stuff. And it's so complicated. Like you said, you follow so many YouTube videos and try to write down everyone's advice, but everyone's so
Yeah.
different.
It's so different. Yeah.
And
And I think that's kind of what I learned as well from like going on this journey. It's been like trying to sort of tailor someone else's experience to your own is
it's
kind of
so
like next to
hard.
impossible. Like it
Yeah.
just doesn't, yeah.
But the real thing here that I've noticed is so many people struggle with acne, and it comes in so many different extents. But I really related to what you said there, where you went to the derm first off and were looking to get like clearer skin when your skin was already clear. And I was
Right.
looking back at some of my content, and I was like thinking back to when I was like in that position, and I was like, oh, I felt so like insecure in my skin here, and I had like 2 pimples on my face,
Yeah.
so I'm like, you're so dumb for thinking that back then,
Yeah.
right? Like, because it's just like it really teaches you to like be grateful for what you have. And
For
it's
real.
kind of that same idea of like when you look back at like yourself when you were younger and you're like, oh, my body looked like this and this and this, and it's like you think back to that time and you're still insecure back then too, but right now you'd like die for that body or your skin or
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah.
So it just
Yeah.
really, I think, teaches you to like appreciate what you have. I did want to ask you, so if you're comfortable answering this question, of course,
Yeah, sure.
at what age did like the cystic acne really start to form for you?
For me, it was like, well, if it was around 2019, 2020, I would have been like 24. So I'm
Okay.
27 now, yeah. So that makes sense. About 23, 24. So like,
Okay.
yeah, adult
Yeah.
acne pretty much, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I've always found that so interesting because growing up, I was always kind of told like, oh, like your acne will go away when you're older, you
Yeah.
know? And as I keep getting older, I'm like, okay, like it's not really
Like,
going away. And adult acne, I think, is really interesting because it's so hard to kind of deal with. And kind of as you said there, like you felt, very like isolated
yeah,
in
for
your
sure.
skin. Do you want to talk about any of like the main struggles you had with like getting this adult acne kind of out of nowhere, as you said, right? Like you didn't experience severe acne most of your life, so it kind of sprouted out of nowhere. Like, what was your mindset at the time? Can you like dive into that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was at the time had just kind of like I told you, like broken up with my partner, and then I was
Mm-hmm.
like with friends. So I felt like I was sort of around that time. I really wanted to like live and like experience, like life and have fun and go out and socialize. And I essentially got the acne about 3 months into like moving into like that flat with my friends. And it was just so, how do I put it, like devastating,
Right.
because it also kind of messed up my relationships with those friends as well, because
Interesting.
they were very sociable, and I think like they didn't really like understand, or like I think some of them tried to be really supportive and like they were, and then some didn't. And I think, but I don't really blame them for it, because I think that, and I was doing a panel the other day with Yusuf, and I mentioned this, and it's like, and a lot of like other people mention this as well. It's like you never really understand it unless you've gone through it yourself.
Right.
So like it was just one of those things, and like I guess, but it also sort of showed me like who was like really close and who maybe wasn't so close. So
Yeah.
in a way, like looking back at the time, yeah, it was sad, but also it was good, because in a way it did kind of teach me a lot, and it showed me like who was like truly there.
Right.
So whenever I look back on my acne experience, I am fairly grateful for it. Like I know it's kind of crazy to say, but like I just think it really like shaped me into like who I am today. It made me like extremely like resilient as well. And just seeing that I can like do that, it was like really, I don't know, it just feels really nice to know that you can do that, and almost like turn like such a struggle into something like positive, like with the page, and like it's actually provided me with so many opportunities, and I've made so many friends through it. So yeah, I mean, I definitely felt awful for about a year, but I think I have like a problem solving brain.
Okay.
And I think some people like maybe like would, I mean, I did crumble, of course, at first, but I realized like I won't be able to really live my life if I keep letting it sort of like impact me on such a level. Like I need to find like a coping strategy. And like
Absolutely.
that was one of the coping strategies, because yeah, I remember, I mean, all the kind of standard stuff, like when I first got it, like layering makeup and not really like recognizing myself. Like I would like layer so much makeup, and then when I take it off, I would just be like either like closing my eyes, not really like looking in the mirror, or just like I did also do it in candlelight, because I thought that was kind of also like a self-care sort of ritual.
Yes.
But it was also just to not really like properly look at the like acne, because it was so intense. So
I
things
feel
like
like
that, and yeah,
I feel like sorry to cut you off there.
no worries.
It's just one thing you said there really stood out to me. Well, many things you said stood out to me, but the first thing, you know, I feel like no one talks enough about the idea of not being able to recognize yourself when you are going through something that affects your, mental, physical, and like your actual appearance as well with acne, because it's really hard to not, yeah, be in that state where you don't recognize yourself. And I feel like that process of taking off your makeup can be so hard for so many people.
Yeah.
And even, I don't know if you ever did this, but I remember one thing that would make me really struggle was looking back at like photos of myself when I didn't have as bad of acne, and almost comparing myself like to myself. Like that was
Yes,
really
I
hard.
totally did that as well. Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know, like it, and I don't really hear people talking about it, but even like now when I look back at pictures from last year where my skin was like really, really inflamed, it's like hard for me to even look at those photos, but it's also like good for me to look at them because I think it shows me one, like how far I've come into that. It's like I got through that. And sometimes
Yeah.
now when I get down about my skin or I get a new breakout and it feels like, oh, like I'm going through this again, right? Like I look back at those photos and I'm like, wait, like she got through it, you know, she kept a smile on her face. Like this one breakout that I have now, like shouldn't impact my day, right? So it's weird though, feeling like you don't even recognize yourself in the mirror.
Yeah, I totally agree. There is definitely like a certain, like a lot of people talk about body dysmorphia, and it's definitely like a very big problem for people, but you never really hear about like specifically like I guess it is a form of body dysmorphia, but like
It
specifically
is.
dysmorphia, and just kind of being like who is this person, you
Right.
know? So yeah, it was an absolutely crazy time. And but then the flip side of that, I noticed kind of recently when I started working with my nutritionist and sort of like my acne's been kind of healing. And like
Mm-hmm.
we can talk a little bit more about that later if you like, but it was interesting because I had gotten then so used to seeing myself with the acne. So like now when it's healing, I remember telling her a few months ago, being like, now I kind of like I wouldn't say I miss it, but I kind
Right.
of almost don't recognize myself without it because
Right.
I've gotten so used to like almost either like hiding it or being like not even hiding it as such anymore, but just being so aware of it. And like even
Yes.
obviously that my face shape has changed again from like not like from the inflammation going down. So it's like a constant like readjustment process that like people I guess
Absolutely.
maybe like experience it if they get filler or something where they're like they mean to do the change. So then they're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, they're preparing for the change. But with
Right.
acne, it's like the change just happens and you
Yeah.
have like control over it.
Yeah.
So
You don't know when it's
yeah,
coming. You don't know, right?
yeah.
I totally agree with what you said there. And I think also because when you deal with acne, especially adult acne where it's like so intense, you're like constantly analyzing your face, right? You're always in the mirror looking like at every new breakout that has come out, every breakout that's healing, like you're always in the mirror. And then, you know, with both of us, since we do post our journey very openly on social media, like we stare at so many photos of ourselves that like we just think we look that way. And I totally agree. Like when it starts healing, like sometimes like I even like shock myself with it and I'm like, oh, you know, like it's so interesting how your skin can
Yeah.
change so much. And I noticed too about the inflammation. Actually, recently someone asked me like, what have you been doing with like your workout routine? It looks like you've like lost weight in your face.
I actually
And
saw this. I think it was on your story the other day or
yes,
something. And I was like, I noticed this too as well. And I was like, oh, I wonder. It was really interesting to like
yeah.
actually find out about it.
And like I've changed a few things in like let's say my workout routine or my eating, but like I would say the biggest thing when looking back at the photos is that inflammation. Like my face was like so inflamed and I didn't even notice it back then because I think I was so fixated on the acne that I couldn't like look at like, you know, any other part of my face. But yeah, that definitely was a big change for me as well. I do want to ask you though because you talk about how, you know, going through this journey has brought you, you know, not only this community on social media and all these opportunities, but also a different way of thinking. And you talked about that problem solving mindset. Would you say, in a way, that you're grateful for your experience with acne?
I mean, I think, like I said earlier, I think it would be in a way like strange to say that I'm grateful for it, but I think like I'm grateful for like the mindset that I was able to sort of carve out of it. Because I guess
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of these things and like, you know, you can apply this to several different like things that life throws at you. Like I think it just depends on how you like interpret them and like what you kind of take away from them. Because for me with acne, like, yeah, I decided that I would do something about it in like a productive way, you know?
Right.
Because I think a lot of responsibility is placed on the person who has acne to like almost heal it, and I think that's really unhealthy and unrealistic because then it like you get all of this sort of self-blame and it's like self-perpetuating. So I think to sort of be able to see that and then not sort of like teach yourself to not have that mindset, you can kind of then almost apply it to like other parts of your life. So I think that's a long-winded way of saying like, yeah, I think it's taught me a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I definitely feel grateful in a way that I've been able to sort of, and I mean, I've obviously have had a lot of privilege with it, you know, starting the page and being able to get the help that I have gotten, you know, all of the kind of like experiences that I've had working with like different holistic nutritionists and practitioners has been all because of the page, and like I would have never been able to afford any of that.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm grateful for like the experience, but also like the fact that I am like privileged in the sense that I've had access to all of these like ways of being able to heal it. Because I mean, a lot of the time, like people assume that you can kind of just heal it with, you know, a cream or a medication or something, but actually like it's such a long process and it's such an expensive process. And it's just a shame that it, you know, it's not spoken about more, like how inaccessible like like the treatment can be for some people. And like I know, I mean, you're in Canada, but like I know in the States, you know, you have to, at least in the UK, you can get some free treatment, even if it is medication. But yeah, like it can be so expensive. So it's a difficult one, like for sure. I definitely wouldn't wish it upon anyone as like a like experience for sure, but I'm glad that at least I was able to sort of create this what I have done out of it, I think. Yeah.
And get something good out of it. And I think that's an amazing perspective. Was there like a moment in time that you remember where that switch kind of flipped for you from like, you know, being in a super low place with your acne to kind of switching and being like, you know what, like I'm gonna grab acne by the throat and like make this a better situation out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I had reached a point where I was like I was saying, I was so isolated that I almost felt like I had nothing to lose at that point. It almost felt like, well, whatever, you know, like I think a lot of us are kind of worried to like put ourselves out there and like just because of like the cringe factor or like who's gonna see it. And like to be honest with you, like I didn't tell anybody about the page until I was like low-key, I was like, I'm not gonna tell anyone until I have 1,000 followers. Like if that happens, then like people can know at least. But I think again, it's that kind of mindset. It's like it's not legit unless I'm validated by this like number on like social media or something. And like I don't really agree with that anymore. But I think in my insecure mindset at the time, I was like, A, I don't want anybody to know about this. I just want some sort of like community out of this. And B, like if anyone was to find out or if I was to tell anyone, it would be like if I actually became like quote unquote like successful or whatever.
Right. It's interesting how our brains work like that. Like, I always talk about, I won't get into it too much, but I always talk about how I was made fun of so much from like having a YouTube channel at like 13 and like being in junior high and stuff, and because I didn't have a huge following. And looking back now, like a bunch of those people now are like, oh, it's so amazing what you do and all of this, and it's like you were the same people making fun of me. But
it's just the way, isn't it? Like
it is. Did you follow like any other, you know, acne positivity or people who shared their journey online when you started your page, or
no? Oh yeah, for sure. Like that's I think what inspired me, because like prior to starting the page, like I was kind of consuming a lot of the content already. So I was following like Sophia Gran, I think her surname is, who I actually met in person like a few months ago. And it's always such a surreal experione when you meet these people and you're like one of the first people I ever followed.
I'd love to meet her.
Yeah, no, she's lovely. And yeah, I remember following her. And I think I also followed Izzy Rogers like really early on. And there must have been someone else as well. There was like a couple of creators. And then also just on YouTube, any video that would be like, you know, talking about an acne experience that was like a healed acne experience. Like I was consuming a lot of that. And yeah, at one point I was like, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel. Like I've learned so much. And like I still, part of me, I'm like, I still want to start one actually, but I'm not around to it yet.
Do it. I love you too.
Yeah.
I love you too. I want to talk about how you mentioned, you know, kind of layering on makeup. And, you know, I hear a lot in my comments, and I definitely felt this way too, but I want to get your perspective. Did you feel that pressure to put on makeup to even like leave the house or like start your day?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like definitely. I think in my own flat, like with my friends where I was living, like I wasn't, you know, in front of them because I was quite comfortable with them. But pretty much anywhere I would go, yeah, like I would be layering makeup. Especially I remember like if I knew that I was going to be meeting someone new, like in new social situations. And it was very like, you know, having my hair sort of like this and like, you know, just making sure that it was covered, or I was, you know, those kinds of things were always through my mind. Or in pictures, like I would pose like, I don't know, I'd pose like this or something. So yeah, like it was always on my mind. And I think that, yeah, the makeup was very, like did become quite toxic for me. I think at one point as well. And I remember like going on this cruise with my family, like right before the pandemic started actually. And I had just also gotten like the most intense acne. And I remember telling them like, please don't comment on my acne, because we were supposed to be staying in one room together on this ship for like 10 days. And I was just like, they haven't seen it yet. They haven't, like they had, because they live in Northern Ireland where like I was raised, and like I live in London, so we actually hadn't seen each other like in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just so terrified for my family to see my face. And I have a little brother, so I was like, please just like don't like
Don't
comment
say
on my
anything.
skin. Like I'm so scared. But yeah, no, my family's always been really supportive, which was great. But yeah, no, I would always layer a lot of makeup. And also like going to the beach was another one because I think like a lot of people are like, oh, you know, when you go to the beach, you should like not wear any makeup and you should be natural at the
Yeah.
beach. I don't know. I feel like there's some kind of rhetoric around like looking natural at the beach or at the pool.
Yes. Or the
And
gym.
yeah, or the gym as well. Like, and I remember just layering makeup. Even like, I mean, even last year, like I still have like really insecure moments where I'm like, I'm back home because I'm originally from Bulgaria. So like I go back
Mhm.
home like every year and I see like family that I haven't seen all year and like obviously there's like a different beauty standard there as well. As in like
Absolutely.
you know, the beauty standard is kind of like the same across the board, like when you kind of look at like the Western sort of countries, but I feel like there's even more stigma back home. So I make sure that it's always covered, especially when I'm kind of more on holiday. Like in my hometown, I'm just like, yeah, whatever, I don't care anymore. But yeah, I've definitely tried to find some sort of relationship with it because it's too exhausting. It's
It
just too
is.
exhausting,
It is.
to always be but yeah, on the topic actually, I think you're Romanian, right? Originally, because I
Yes.
think I was like watching something of yours, and I was like, wait, that's so cool. One of my best friends is from Romania,
Oh,
and
that's
like,
awesome.
yeah, and like we're low key like neighbors, so it's cool.
That's so cool. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
was just in Romania 2.5 weeks ago, and yeah, definitely felt that pressure because there's family that I hadn't seen in like 15 years.
Wow.
So obviously they see my social media, so it's not like my acne is like a secret, but like there's just that like weird feeling when you're like meeting someone in person that yeah, you just feel that judgment, especially from family. It's like different because you know like they're gonna say something if they like if they need to, right? So making those boundaries clear, I definitely had to go through that with my family as well and be like, hey, like, even if I'm breaking out, like don't mention it because I already know, right? Like I don't need that.
Exactly. Or the advice as well, you know, like the dreaded
Oh, the
sort of like, have you
advice.
tried this? Or like, why don't you try
Yes.
this? Yeah.
Yes. And you just have to kind of let the people close to you know, like, I'm figuring stuff out, but it definitely can be exhausting. And I think, both of us reached a point in our journey where we were so exhausted with it, where that's kind of when things kind of switch to the other side, where you're like, I don't care anymore. Like
Yeah.
I obviously there's still days where I get insecure, and I wanted to ask you as well about this. Like, you mentioned that you used to layer up some makeup all the time and now you do it every now and then, but are you a lot more comfortable like walking out of the house now like makeup free than you were like let's say a year ago?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. And I feel so grateful for it because, yeah, it just feels like I can almost like do more or be more spontaneous or something. Because, yeah, I would say so. I mean, like you said as well, I still have my off days. Like some days
Mm-hmm.
I do just want to like layer it. But yeah, as a whole, yeah, for sure. And I think I actually found a lot of like comfort and sort of just trying to get used to seeing my skin like with acne because what I was saying earlier about always layering it and then when
Yeah,
you take it off it's really difficult to look at
it's like a
yourself,
shock factor. Yeah.
right? So I sort of tried to like reverse engineer that and I would do just like eye makeup or just sort of
Yes.
try and make myself feel like put together or like yeah I guess put together but still have my acne on show. And then that sort of, and I was seeing obviously other creators doing it like online and I just feel like it was just it just really really helped my confidence. And yeah, also think like having a community online who are so kind. I mean, of course you get like kind of haters and stuff sometimes
Mhm.
and like trolls and whatever, but the community itself is so lovely and they're always so uplifting. And
Yes.
it's like we just kind of, but you know how it is. It's like everyone's just so nice to each other. And it just really gives you that kind of like vitality. And you're like, yes, I
Mm-hmm.
can do this. And so yeah, being able to sort of see my skin without makeup, but like still feel like fresh and put together really helped
Mm-hmm.
me. Sure.
I love that, and that's one thing that really helped me as well. I always say like when you're having an off day with your skin, like put on a great outfit. And I know like you're a fashion girl, you always have like such cool fits on. And then do like a hairstyle you like, do makeup
Yeah.
that you like, but you don't have to feel that pressure of covering your skin to do the makeup. And that's something that took me a long time to realize, but now like I'll often do makeup where I'm like wearing really light like face makeup and then I'll like do something fun on the eyes or whatever, and it does help like you said because being seeing your acne more throughout the day, when you take off the makeup at night, it isn't as much of a drastic change. So you do feel like a lot more comfortable. But with that, do you feel like acne in a way became part of your identity? And do you feel like now with your social media and it kind of also feeding into like, I don't know if you do social media full time, but kind of leading into a job too, do you feel like acne is and has become like part of your identity?
I mean, some people do comment this on videos, like, but almost in kind of a malicious way to be like, oh,
Yes.
she doesn't treat her acne because like it's her job now or something.
I get that
I
all
don't
the
know if
time.
you get
It's
that as
so
well.
annoying. It's
It's
like,
so crazy. You're like, what? Like,
again,
but
like wouldn't wish it upon anyone. Like I'm just trying to make the best out of my journey, but like it's not like I'm like, thank God I have acne, right? Like,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. But I mean, I'll be really frank with you, and like with the audience as well. Like, I think like it has to a point because I think it's just a symptom of like being online and like being a creator and having a niche
Yeah.
because that's just kind of how like the algorithm is built. So it's the one that gives you like the identity rather than like you kind of absorbing that identity, right?
Right.
Because of course if it's nice to not have like painful bumps on my face, like purely out of just like I don't want to
Discomfort.
like be in pain,
Yeah.
So of course I wouldn't want to just like constantly have it. But yeah, it's difficult whenever it's like attached to your job and it's like attached to, like collaborations and then it's also attached to like metrics. So it becomes very strange, but I just feel like people like to see authenticity and they like to see the journey and I just want to be as sort of honest and as authentic as I can be. And if that means, like down the line my acne like isn't as severe and like I mean it's pretty much healed like now. So yeah, I think just being honest is really important and the ones that care will stick around for the ride and it's just how it is and I mean I'd love to be more fluid with it and kind of like explore other avenues as well. So yeah, we'll see. I've got a lot of like kind of like drive and ideas for it. So I think the acne is not going to stop me, like whether I have it or not. It's just the way that sort of social media is geared up. I think it does like to box us in. But I think if
Absolutely.
you're perseverant with something, like whatever it is, like you will and eventually like you can build it up. So yeah, I think people just like to see like your true authentic self. And
I
yeah.
totally agree with that. I always get the comments that are like, oh, like what's gonna happen when you heal your acne fully?
Right.
Like, are you still gonna post? And I'm like, well, it doesn't take away from me posting like real skin photos or like makeup
Exactly.
tutorials without a filter, like, I mean, also, I want to talk to you about this too, because obviously you've come like a tremendous, like long way with your skin. Your skin looks amazing. I see your journey online, but even talking to you now, have you struggled with the fact that obviously like healing acne is one whole thing, the pain and everything. And it's so nice when your skin doesn't feel like painful, especially when you're speaking or eating, or even just like laying down. Like I remember
Right.
being in so much pain, like I couldn't lay down like on my side. So that's obviously really nice to get to that point. But I do want to talk to you, like, does the acne scarring like ever get to you? And because acne scarring is so difficult to heal and you can get treatments done, but it'll never really go back to how like your skin was before. Does that ever, get to you or make you sad that you will never have like, let's say, quote unquote, like perfect smooth skin again?
You know what? Yeah, I think like at first, especially, I remember when, and you might have also experienced this kind of when you kind of the inflammation starts to go down and then you start to see the scars for the first
Yeah.
time. And like you see the shadows and stuff, and you're like, wow, like this is it now. Like this is what it's gonna look like, acne or no
Mm-hmm.
acne. I remember that was like a real adjustment period for me as well. Like it was kind of like something I had to come to terms with. But I think overall, like it's kind of in similar vein to just having the acne in general or not wearing makeup. It's kind of all in similar vein. I just feel like I've become quite comfortable with just letting it be and like with
Mm-hmm.
just the process of it all. So yeah, I just sort of like let it happen. And I think that's all you can really do because yeah, sometimes I mean, I'm gonna be fully honest, like sometimes I do think about like, oh, what about if I got like a laser treatment or something? But then I'm just sort of like, if I feel like it at the time, like maybe I would, but also I don't feel like there's like a pressure on myself to do something like that. It's the same with like any kind of slightly more invasive thing like filler, and I think it's in a similar sort of vein for me.
Right.
And I'm kind of intrigued by like this kind of stuff. Like I'm really interested in like cosmetic procedures and beauty, and like I just finished reading a book actually on like K-beauty and like Korean like beauty culture, and I
Okay.
highly recommend. I'll like tell you about it after. It's like the best book. But yeah, I'm super interested in it. So I think out of curiosity, like maybe I would get something like that done. And actually, speaking of which, I was offered to do this like Aviclear laser, which I saw that you also did. And like
Yes.
I wanna like know about your experience with it if you want to share, because yeah, I've just been offered to do it. I'm gonna be doing it next month. And again, it was one of those things like, should I do it? Should I not do it? Is this me? Is it not
Yeah.
me? Like, who am I?
I felt the same. I felt the exact
Identity
same.
crisis
Yeah,
because of this laser treatment.
literally. I felt the kind of similar too. I was really on the fence, but yeah, no, I did do it. I had all three treatments. Honestly, like the most painful thing I've probably ever experienced in my life, but
Really?
they said some people like sleep through it and then other people like find it really painful. So it just depends on like your pain tolerance and like it can also
Right.
depend on like where you're at in your hormone cycle. I don't know, there's a bunch of factors. For me, it was really painful like on the like bony areas, like right here. And
Right. Around like kind of the nose area.
my forehead, it hurt so bad because it's like all bone, you know, in like the fatty parts of my cheeks couldn't feel a thing, but those parts, yeah, were more painful. I have experienced like quite a bit of purging ever since, but they
Hmm.
do say like it takes like up to a year to really see results. So I don't know, I'm not like stressing out about it. I'll kind of see like how it goes and all of that, but no, it's great to get your perspective on that because I
Yeah.
think I always say like I would always, you know, when people say, oh, you have a lot of spots on your face, and, you know, I'll often say, like, oh, a lot of it is like acne scarring. I only have like two
Yeah.
actives right
Yeah,
now.
for real.
But obviously people see like the red marks and they think it's active acne. And for me, like the acne scars have never really bothered me that much because one, you can't like feel them and they're not painful. And I think one of the worst things, at least for me with acne, is like when I can feel it, then it like
Right.
brings my mind back to it more and more, even if I'm not staring at myself in a mirror. I'll be like out talking or eating, and when I feel that pain, I'm like, right, I have a pimple there or whatever, right? So it just like
Exactly.
it just draws the focus there.
Yeah. I think
Um,
that's why, sorry to cut you off, but I
yeah,
think
no,
that's
go
why
for
I
it.
was so drawn to the Aviclear laser. And for anyone listening who doesn't know what it is, it's basically this fairly recent laser treatment that targets the sebaceous glands.
Yeah.
Which is essentially, I was speaking to a dermatologist the other day, and she said it's kind of like taking Accutane, but it's just a laser. So you don't
Yes.
have to like take the Accutane. It just shrinks your sebaceous glands
Yeah.
so that they don't overproduce oil,
Yeah.
which then doesn't lead to the scarring, because then obviously you wouldn't get the pimple in the first place. So
Yes.
no, yeah, it's really interesting to hear your perspective on it. And yeah, I think I'm gonna do it. But as for the scarring, for me, it doesn't necessarily bother me right now. But who knows? Like in 2 years and 5 years, maybe my mind will change. And I think that's kind of like the beauty of like having this sort of mindset, is that nothing is really set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
And also just kind of having this sort of live and let live, like go with the flow sort of mentality about it. And I think that kind of goes for like these kind of treatments as well. And yeah.
What do you wish that you could say to yourself a few years ago when you were at like that really low point with your acne?
Oh, this question always gets me so mad emotionally. Oh man, what do I wish I could say to myself? Well, I think to stop chasing, like just to stop, like just stop it. Like just stop chasing this like unrealistic like ideal that is perpetuated. And it's really hard to though, isn't it? But I think it's so unhealthy, and like just finding like stop comparing yourself to others as well, I think is like a really big one. Because it's just so mentally draining. And just finding peace like where you are, like right in this present moment, and knowing that like I guess life is all about like it is all about change. Like change
Mhm.
happens constantly, and like our bodies are constantly changing, our bodies are constantly healing. Is something I always like to always say, because it really makes me feel very, it gives me so much comfort to know that that's like a process that's just always occurring, like even when you can't see it. So yeah, just stop putting so much pressure on yourself to be perfect, and like trust the process, like trust your body. Your body knows what it's doing, because I went through like a stage of just really throwing a lot of stuff on my skin, like diet wise, supplement wise, skincare wise. Like, I mean, I'm sure you've been there as well. Just throwing so much random stuff at it, like fighting so hard. And I think that really also contributed to more stress and more acne. And so I remember, and I really wanted to tell you about this actually, when I started working with this most recent nutritionist. It's interesting because I think it's like the least amount that I've actually done in terms of like physically doing. But what helped me the most with her was that she, like when we first started chatting, she was like, okay, just like imagine your acne as like a thing and you're just like handing it over to me. And so she was like, now it's not your responsibility anymore. Like you just don't have to think about it anymore. Now it's like, just, you know, kind of take a breath, and it's not. So that really helped me. I think it was that psychological sort of letting it go, like stop, like trying to stop worrying about it, trying to not fix it so much all the time.
Right.
Really helped me. So yeah, just stop trying to fix it all the time because it's just debilitating and really, really hard, and just focus on simplicity. That's another one that's really, really helped. But yeah, I can go on for days.
I want to ask you, because you said, you know, stop comparing yourself, and I think that's such a big one. What helped you the most to kind of be able to, you know, stop yourself from comparing yourself to others, whether it be in person or on social media?
It's really, really hard, you know, like it's so much easier said than done because I mean, we're always consuming stuff like content or, you know, media and stuff. It's really hard to not. But I think it's kind of like finding that sort of like inner happy, like inner peace with yourself, that like no matter what you come across or what you see, it's like you know that you know who you are and like you're comfortable with who you are. And just reaching that kind of level of like, I guess it is like maybe like a confidence as well, that you just have to work on and build over time. Because like once you get there, no amount of sort of like comments or hate or seeing someone's like face or whatever can like change your perception of yourself. So sort of trying to find that like real sort of grounding of yourself and like really figuring out like, yeah, what's important to you really is like, it's like the fundamental of like almost like life is like, is that what's most important to you? Like if it is, then that's fine, but it's just a really hard journey. So yeah, just finding that kind of peace really, really helped me. And yeah, like I guess it is hard, but that's why we got each other. And I think following like accounts that do show like more realistic content is like has been really helpful for me. And yeah, like just unfollowing things that don't bring you joy, and you can control what you see to an extent. So just definitely taking a break as well, just from it all together sometimes really helps. Like I do have like social media like detox days and just like not like like not looking at a screen all day, and sometimes I'm not very present, and sometimes it actually does make me feel like a little bit almost like guilty because I know people maybe are like expecting something of me, but I know that I'm like, right, I'm going through it. Like I need to take a day or two off of it altogether. And yeah, yeah, that's it for me, I think.
Yeah, no, that's some really great advice there. And I definitely agree with all of that. Kind of shifting gears here, I want to ask you, what are some of the top things that you feel like only other people, you know, living with adult acne, struggling with adult acne would understand that maybe you wish, you know, people in your surrounding or other people who don't struggle with acne would maybe understand?
I mean, I think it's a really misunderstood condition as a whole, because it's strange because so many people suffer with it to different like levels. But I feel like seeing, you know, the amount of like crazy comments that we receive all the time, like you can really tell that people just don't understand. And I think the main thing is to realize that it's just so unique to each person. And there isn't like one sort of solution for each case. Like even if something's worked for your friend or for your family member or whatever it is, it's like it's just so different for each person, and it's a really complicated case, especially for like more severe cases. So just kind of I wish people could reach that kind of like level of understanding for it, that it's just, it takes a lot of patience and it takes a lot of perseverance to actually be able to like deal with it. And on the flip side, like I think people also need to realize that sometimes, you know, people who aren't constantly trying to fix their acne aren't at fault for it. Like I think people should be allowed to just like not want to fix it or like not want to do anything about it.
It's exhausting sometimes, you know, and sometimes you just want to like take a break from trying to fix it and just kind of
it's like a full-time job. Like
it is.
And some people get really offended like on the internet when you're just like, I don't
really care.
You know, like I'm not going to just stay here and like try to constantly like fix my skin, like because there's so many other things that I could do with my life.
Right.
And yeah, so I think that there really isn't that kind of understanding, but I think it's because of that kind of like image that we're pushed, like that kind of beauty standard that is pushed on us constantly. So people can't even like imagine what it's like. And then also there's that kind of level of like, oh, well, you just don't like take care of yourself, or you don't care if you're not trying to fix it, you just like don't care about your appearance. And it's like, well, actually, no, maybe I'm just comfortable in myself. Like maybe I've just reached that level of like self-love that I was kind of talking about a sec ago, that it doesn't really matter to like what I look like necessarily, or what my acne is doing that day. So I wish people understood that more, for sure.
Absolutely. I can totally agree with that. And, obviously there's way different ways to like care about your appearance. It doesn't just mean like you wake up and like roll out of bed and you're like, I don't care like what I look like, right? Like there's obviously different levels to that. And obviously with acne, especially adult acne, it's so complex. There's like the physical pain of it, the appearance, the emotional, right? It can really affect your mental and physical state. What was the hardest thing for you out of all of those things that kind of acne brought on?
I mean, like the physical pain is something that people never really talk about. Like sometimes you'll want to like not think about it, and then you'll somehow like shove your face or like put on clothes, and then it's like so painful.
Just like throbbing pain.
It's just like, it's like when you hit your little toe and it's like incredibly painful. And it's like, I think that sort of thing like really did affect me, because it's almost like you want to not think about it, but the physical aspects of it really don't let you like not think about it. And yeah, just kind of like not being able to like be or not feeling like kissable by like my partner as well was like a big one. Like, or even just sort of like not wanting them, like, yeah, just kind of not wanting people to be near it, because you just feel so like out of your own body, and like, that kind of thing was really tough.
How did you overcome that, especially like with your like a partner or someone touching your face? Like what was the biggest thing that helped you with that?
Well, I think it's because they've always been really supportive. So yeah, like having someone there that's that supportive and like really understands like really does help. And yeah, just kind of over time gaining confidence and realizing that like they're with you because they love you, and it's not like how you look or how many spots you have on your face also really helps. But it was that adjustment period, I think, the first kind of year, that was like sort of really fighting and thinking, okay, it's gonna go away, it's gonna go away. And then like it didn't. And I was like, okay, I have to really learn how to live with this now. And like I have to figure out how I'm gonna like not let it like bother me so much. And yeah, it was definitely that adjustment period was the hardest, I think, for me, and the pain. And sometimes I'm like, I wonder if there is like acne numbing cream. Like sometimes I'm like, I wish I could just put something on it so it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah,
like someone listening, like please develop like an acne numbing like, or with something that has like an active ingredient that's also doing like a little bit of spot treating, but also has like a numbing agent. Like, please do that. And I know you're making a skincare.
I am. I'm not creating that, but I feel like you should patent that immediately, because that's an amazing idea. No, that's definitely like, very relatable. I just did a full episode actually with my boyfriend where we talked about all about like my experience dating with acne, talked about that. And so many people struggle with that because it's hard to think, that your partner won't love you because you have acne, but really coming to that realization that the right person for you and the person that really cares about you isn't gonna determine your self-worth based on if you're breaking out at the time or not. So I'm really happy to hear that you kind of have learn to overcome that. I do want to end this podcast on like a nice positive note. So I do want to ask you, what's something that you love about your skin or have been loving lately?
I think it's like my kind of like skin tone, how like dewy it is. I love that. And even like whenever I am quite oily, like you can probably even tell now in the recording, but I just feel like it's like, it gives me like a really fresh glow. And I'm like, I don't need to even like put on highlighter or blush. Like this is all just me.
All natural. I love it. Yeah, it's crazy how like a few years ago, like everything was like matte, like you couldn't have like, and now it's like people like do so many products and steps to like achieve that like super glowy look, and it's like some of us just have it naturally.
Yeah, some of us oily girlies. Like,
yeah, there you go. To anyone listening. Well, Patsy, thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Loud Talk. It was so nice to hear, part of your journey, get to know you better, and not just like from following you on social media, which to anyone listening, please go follow her on social media. I think you're at Cystur on everything.
At Cystur on everything, yeah.
Okay. super easy to find. So go check her out. She posts so many like amazing videos and photos. And I know like your posts helped me a lot when I was struggling with acne. So I'm sure to anyone listening that's not already following you to go check out. But it was so nice to speak to you and hear about your journey. So thank you for joining me in this episode today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so nice to like meet you and chat to you. And yeah, I hope we can do it again because it's honestly been the best. I loved
Yes,
it.
I honestly like I was gonna ask you like maybe we can do like a part 2 about like more of your nutritional journey. I'd love to hear
I
about
would love
that.
that. I have so
So
much like information, literally. That's just like, and even on the page, like I think that's kind of a goal of mine for like the next kind of few months. I want to do more like kind of helpful content for people. So yeah, definitely nutrition. I'm into it. Supplements, herbs, even
yes.
skincare, like all of that stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's do it. Okay, we'll be coming back with a part 2 with Patsy very soon on LoudTalk for sure. But to anyone listening, if you are tuning in on YouTube, hi, thank you so much for watching the video version. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and comment down below what you want to see next. If you are tuning in on any streaming platform, make sure to give LoudTalk a 5-star rating and check out all new episodes every single Sunday on all streaming platforms. That is it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Patsy. It was so great talking to you. And that is it. Bye, everyone.